The champagne flute shattered against the marble floor like a gunshot in the hushed ballroom, drawing every eye to the corner where David stood frozen, his knuckles white around the stem. Faggot! The word slithered from Uncle Harlan's lips like venom, aimed not at the groom but at the best man, the one who'd poured his soul into making this day perfect for the man he loved in silence. Anthony's face drained of color across the room, his new wife's hand frozen on his arm. But it was David's quiet nod, the way he slipped the phone from his pocket without a word, that sealed the fate of the entire lavish affair. David had always known love like this was a fool's gamble, but damn if he hadn't bet the house anyway. Growing up in the sprawling suburbs of Westchester County, New York, where manicured lawns hid more secrets than a politician's memoir, he and Anthony had been inseparable since the day Anthony's family moved in next door. 8 years old, David with his mop of unruly brown curls and a backpack full of comic books, Anthony with his shy smile and a soccer ball under his arm. They'd built forts in the woods behind David's house, whispered dreams under the stars, and sworn blood oaths to conquer the world together. Back then, it was innocent, the kind of bond that made mothers coo and fathers clap shoulders at barbecues. But puberty hit like a freight train, and for David, came with a revelation that twisted everything. He came out at 16, in the fluorescent-lit kitchen of his parents' colonial home, the smell of his mom's lasagna still hanging in the air. His dad, a burly ex-cop turned security consultant, had paused mid-bite, fork hovering like a guillotine. "Son," he'd said, voice gravelly but steady, "this family's got your back." Always, his mom had cried, not from shame but from the fear of a world that chewed up kids like him. They hugged him tight, and life rolled on. David aced his SATs, snagged a full ride to NYU for computer science, and by 25, he'd bootstrapped a fintech app that tracked microinvestments for gig workers, selling it to a Silicon Valley giant for 8 figures. Money bought freedom, or so he thought. Freedom to live openly in his Greenwich Village loft, with its exposed brick walls and rainbow flag fluttering from the fire escape. Freedom to date casually, to laugh at brunch with his queer chosen family, to post stories of pride parades without a second thought. But Anthony stayed in the closet, a ghost in his own life. The Russo family was old-school Italian-American, the kind where Sunday Mass was non-negotiable and family values meant straight-laced weddings with enough taffeta to choke a horse. Anthony's dad, Vincenzo, ran a construction firm in the Bronx, barking orders like a drill sergeant, while his mom, Maria, ruled the kitchen with an iron ladle and prayers for grandkids. Anthony followed the script: Columbia Business School, a corner office at a midtown bank, and a string of dates with women who never quite stuck. David knew the truth because he'd seen it in stolen glances at frat parties, in the way Anthony's hand lingered too long on his shoulder during late-night drives home from bars. They'd never crossed that line, not fully. A drunken kiss at a rooftop party in college, hands fumbling in the shadows, but Anthony pulled back, eyes wild with terror. "I can't, Dave. Not like this. Not with them watching." So David buried it. Buried the ache that bloomed in his chest every time Anthony smiled at him, the way it lit up like the 4th of July. He funneled it into friendship, into being the rock. When Anthony proposed to Emily, a sweet, ambitious marketing exec he'd met at a networking event, David forced a grin over the phone. "She's lucky, man. You both are." Emily was kind, the type who baked cookies for David's birthday and asked genuine questions about his travels to Berlin's queer clubs. David liked her, in the abstract way you like a painting you can't touch. But when the wedding planning hit fever pitch, and Vincenzo started grumbling about costs, "This ain't the Sopranos. Tony, we can't drop 50 grand on flowers." David stepped in. Quietly, through anonymous wire transfers to the venue, the caterer, the photographer. "It's nothing," he told Anthony over beers at their old haunt, McSorley's. "Consider it my wedding gift." Best man's gotta pull his weight. Anthony had protested, of course, but his eyes, those deep hazel pools that David drowned in during weak moments, held gratitude laced with something unspoken. Guilt, maybe, or longing. "You're too good, Dave. Always have been." They clinked bottles, the foam spilling like unspoken confessions, and David swallowed the truth. He was funding the cage that would lock away the man he loved forever. The wedding day dawned crisp and golden, October's leaves painting Central Park a riot of red and gold. The Plaza Hotel's grand ballroom had been transformed into a dreamscape, crystal chandeliers dripping light like diamonds, tables draped in ivory silk, centerpieces of white roses climbing crystal towers. David adjusted his bow tie in the groom's suite mirror, the tux hugging his lean frame like a second skin. At 32, he looked every bit the successful urbanite, sharp jawline dusted with stubble, blue eyes that crinkled with easy charm. But inside, his heart hammered like a glitchy algorithm. Anthony emerged from the bathroom, towel slung low on his hips, hair damp from the shower. "How do I look?" he asked, voice light but edged with nerves. David turned, and for a split second, the room shrank, the steam still curling in the air, the scent of Anthony's cedar cologne wrapping around him like a promise. "Like a goddamn king," David replied, forcing levity. Anthony laughed, but his gaze lingered, tracing David's lips, his throat. Then Emily's knock shattered it. "Tony, bridesmaids need you for photos," and the moment evaporated. The ceremony was a blur of vows and violins, Emily radiant in lace, Anthony's smile practiced but perfect. David stood at the altar's edge, holding the rings, his own hands steady despite the storm inside. Vows exchanged, rice tossed like confetti grenades, and then the reception, a whirlwind of toasts, laughter echoing off gilded walls. David's speech was gold, witty anecdotes from their youth, a nod to Anthony's unwavering heart. The crowd ate it up, applause thundering as he raised his glass. "To Anthony and Emily, may your love be as endless as the skyline outside these windows," he said then, nursing a scotch, watching Anthony whirl Emily across the dance floor. She was laughing, head thrown back, and for a heartbeat, David let himself believe it was enough. That his love could transmute into this joy for his friend, even if it carved him hollow. Then Uncle Harlan took the mic. Harlan Russo was a bull of a man, face ruddy from too many scotches, veins like rivers on a map of regret. Vincenzo's brother, a retired firefighter with a pension and a grudge against the libs ruining everything. He'd cornered David earlier by the bar, breath hot with booze. "Heard you got that fancy app money, kid. Good for you. Just don't go rubbing your lifestyle on my nephew." David had smiled tightly, excused himself. But now, slurring into the microphone during open toasts, Harlan had the floor. "Lemme tell you something about family," he boomed, the room falling to a polite hush. "In this country, we built it on hard work, God-fearing values, and men who know their place. Anthony here's a good boy, always has been. But I see you up there, David, smiling like the cat that got the cream. We all know what you are. Parading around the city with your friends. Trying to turn heads. Make folks question what's natural. Gasps rippled. Forks clinking to a stop. Emily's hand flew to her mouth. Maria crossed herself. Anthony froze mid-step, face ashen. David's world narrowed to that voice. That word, faggot, dropped like a bomb. It landed in the champagne flute he clutched, shards flying as his grip betrayed him. The room spun, horrified stares, a child's wide eyes from the kids' table, the photographer's lens clicking like gunfire. And Anthony, God, Anthony just standing there, mouth agape, silent as the grave. David rose, glass crunching under his shoe. No outburst, no tears. Just a quiet exhale, the kind you make before diving into cold water. He pulled his phone from his pocket, thumbs flying across the screen, 3 swift emails to the vendors, authorizations revoked, funds frozen. 50 grand gone in a heartbeat, the wedding's arteries severed without a drop of blood. Then he walked out, past the stunned faces, through the grand doors, into the October chill where the city hummed indifferent. His limo idled curbside. He slid in, the door clicking shut like a period at the end of a sentence. Home, he told the driver, voice steady as steel. As the plaza shrank in the rearview, David allowed one tear to track down his cheek. Not for the money. Never for that. For the boy next door who'd promised forever, and the man who'd let the world shame him into silence. Back in the ballroom, chaos bloomed like spilled wine. The DJ's music stuttered to a halt as Harlan realized his blunder, mumbling apologies into the mic. Just jokin', folks. Family ribbon, but the damage was done. Waitstaff hovered uncertainly. The cake, a 5-tiered monstrosity of fondant and heartbreak, sat untouched. Emily turned to Anthony, her veil askew, eyes searching. Tony? What was that? Anthony's world cracked open. David's face, that quiet nod, the phone, the exit replayed in HD. The man who'd funded half the circus, who'd loved him through every coward's choice, walking away because of him. Because he hadn't moved, hadn't shouted, hadn't bridged the chasm between duty and desire. I need to. He bolted, tuck's tails flapping like white flags of surrender, shoving through the crowd toward the exit. Outside, the limo taillights were already red specks in traffic. Anthony waved frantically at a cab, barking "Follow that car," to the driver, who raised a skeptical brow but punched the gas. The chase wound through Manhattan's veins, Fifth Avenue's glow, taxis honking like angry geese, Anthony's heart slamming harder than the potholes. Dave, wait! But the cab lost the trail at a light, and Anthony slumped back, fists clenched. The wedding he'd clung to like a life raft was sinking, and in its wake, the truth he drowned for years bobbed to the surface. He loved David. Not as a brother, not as a friend. As the air he breathed, the beat he followed. And he'd just let the world chase him away. The loft in Greenwich Village felt like a tomb when David let himself in, the door's beep echoing off the high ceilings. He kicked off his shoes, the tux jacket following in a heap by the leather armchair, bow tie yanked loose like a noose finally cut. The space was his sanctuary, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves crammed with Vonnegut and Baldwin, a king-sized bed piled with down comforters, the kitchen island scarred from midnight pancake sessions with friends who'd become family after his own folks passed in a car wreck 3 years back. Tonight, though, it mocked him. Too big, too empty, the city lights winking through the windows like cruel spectators. He poured a tumbler of bourbon, Maker's Mark, neat, and sank onto the couch, phone buzzing ignored on the coffee table. Texts from the wedding planner. Funds reversed, ceremony on hold. Emily, David, what happened? Call me. And Anthony, God, Anthony, Dave, please, talk to me. He scrolled past them, thumb hovering over delete, but couldn't. Not yet. The shame burned hotter than the liquor sliding down his throat. Not Harlan's words, ugly as they were, but his own silence after. No clapback, no storm-out rant. Just efficiency, cold and corporate, like canceling a subscription. That's what I am to him, he thought bitterly. A line item. Expendable. Sleep evaded him, the clock ticking past 2 a.m. As memories looped like a bad playlist. That college kiss on the rooftop, Anthony's mouth tasting of cheap beer and possibility, hands gripping David's waist like he'd never let go. I want this, he'd whispered against David's neck, breath hot and ragged. But dawn brought reality. Texts from Maria about brunch plans, a guilt trip veiled as love. Anthony ghosted for a week, then reappeared with excuses and bro hugs, the wall between them thicker than ever. David had let it slide, told himself it was progress just to have him close. Pathetic, in retrospect. Love wasn't a debit card you swiped for proximity. By morning, the buzz hit his inbox, headlines on page 6, whispers of scandal. Plaza wedding implodes. Best man pulls plug after bigots blurt. He snorted, dark humor bubbling up. At least the tabloids got the villain right. His assistant, Lena, a fierce queer Latina with a pixie cut and zero tolerance for bullshit, called it 8:15 sharp. Boss, you alive? Or do I need to send the crisis team? Alive? David rasped, voice sandpaper from lack of sleep. And no. Handle the fallout. Tell the vendors it's a clerical error. Full payout by noon. Clerical my ass. That was surgical. A pause. Her tone softening. You okay? He stared at the ceiling, fan blades slicing the light. Define okay. Lena sighed, the sound of a friend who'd patched him through worse. Come over later. Brunch at mine. No suits. No drama. Just mimosas and my killer huevos rancheros. Deal. He hung up, then texted the group chat. Emergency Queer Council. Lena's. 11 a.m. Bring tissues and tequila. Replies flooded in emojis of hearts and fists. Promises of vengeance. His people. The ones who'd shown him love didn't have to hurt. Across town, in the bridal suite of a midtown hotel where the Russo family had crashed after the night's implosion, Anthony paced like a caged wolf. Emily sat on the king bed's edge, makeup scrubbed off, robe cinched tight around her like armor. The room smelled of wilted roses from the delivery meant for their honeymoon suite. Malibu cliffs and ocean breezes. Now a joke. Tony, sit. Talk to me. He whirled, hands raking his hair. What the hell do I say? Sorry the wedding tanked because my uncle's a dinosaur and my best friend finally grew a spine? She winced but held his gaze, steady as ever. It's more than that. You've been checked out for months. Dinners where you stare at your phone, nights you bail early claiming work. And David, her voice cracked, not with anger but hurt. The way you look at him, like he's the sun and I'm just scenery. Anthony stopped, gut twisting. Emily deserved better, the firecracker who'd climbed the ladder at Ogilvy by sheer will, who laughed at his dumb jokes and dreamed of adopting kids from the foster system. They'd clicked on paper, shared love of Scorsese films, weekend hikes in the Palisades. But in the quiet hours, when her head on his chest felt like a weight he couldn't lift, he'd escape to texts with David. Memes about bad bosses, links to underground jazz shows, the kind of ease that made his chest ache with what-ifs. "I'm sorry," he said, sinking beside her. "I never meant to. Drag me into your closet?" She laughed, bitter edge. "I knew, Tony. From the third date, when you flinched at that gay bar story I told. I thought, maybe I could be the bridge. Help you out." Tears welled, but she swiped them away. "But you have to choose. Or him. And if it's him, let me go clean." The words landed like Harlan's slur, stripping him bare. Choose. As if love were a multiple-choice exam, not the wild, consuming thing that had clawed at him since they were kids. He thought of David's laugh echoing in the treehouse, the way he'd held Anthony through his mom's chemo scare last year, whispering, "You're not alone." Never. And the wedding, David's quiet generosity, funding the fairy tale Anthony didn't even want, all because he asked. "It's him," Anthony whispered, the admission cracking something deep. "God. It's always been him." She nodded, exhaling like she'd been holding it for months. "Then go. Before I change my mind and key your car." A watery smile. "And tell him I said he's an idiot for waiting this long." Anthony dressed in jeans and a hoodie, civilian clothes, for the first real time in years, and bolted into the crisp morning. The subway rattled him downtown, heart pounding with each stop. Union Square, Astor Place, the village's bohemian pulse calling him home. He knew the loft's address from a drunken spill years back, though he'd never darkened the door. Standing on the stoop, buzzer under his thumb, panic surged. What if he slams it? What if he's done? He pressed anyway. "Dave? It's me." Static. Then David's voice. Weary. "Go home. Anthony. Please. 5 minutes. I owe you that." The door buzzed open. Anthony climbed the stairs 2 at a time, pulse thundering. The loft door swung wide. David in sweats and a faded Ramones tee, eyes shadowed but fierce. "You look like shit," Anthony blurted, then winced. David's laugh was a bark, devoid of mirth. "Pot, kettle. Come in." The space enveloped him, warm woods, abstract art prints splashed with color, a faint hint of sandalwood candle. Anthony's gaze snagged on photos. David with arms around laughing friends at a beach bonfire, another of them as teens, arms slung casual, grins wide. "Nice place," he said lamely, hovering by the island as David poured coffee. Cut the small talk. David slid a mug over, black and steaming. "You here to apologize for your uncle? Or to beg for the deposit back?" Anthony's jaw tightened. "Fuck the money. I'm here because I was a coward." Last night, when he said that, I froze. Like always. And you just walked. Quiet, strong. Like you deserved. He stepped closer, voice dropping. "You do deserve it, Dave. Better than me hiding behind a veil and vows I can't keep." David set his mug down, slow, deliberate. "Then why? Why propose to her? Why let it go this far?" "Because I'm scared." The words tore free. Raw. "Scared of Dad disowning me, Mom crying at Mass, the whole family turning their backs." but mostly scared of losing you. If I admitted it, if I said I love you, not like a brother, but love you, and you walked, I'd shatter. David's breath hitched, blue eyes searching. You think I haven't been walking already? Every time you choose safe over us. Anthony closed the gap, hands framing David's face, thumbs brushing stubble. No more choosing. Emily knows. She let me go. And last night, seeing you shatter that glass, not with anger but dignity, it broke me open. I love you, David. Have since that stupid rooftop, since you held me when I couldn't breathe. Marry me. Or hell, elope to Vermont. Just say yes. For a heartbeat, silence thrummed, thick as fog. Then David's hands covered his, pulling him in. Their kiss was fire, slow at first, testing, then desperate, years of pent-up hunger spilling over. Anthony tasted salt, bourbon, home. When they broke, foreheads pressed, David whispered, yes, but no more secrets. We're out loud, proud, all of it. Anthony nodded, grinning through tears. Deal. But outside, the world waited. Vincenzo's call lit Anthony's phone. Where the hell are you? Family meeting. Now, the Russo storm was brewing, and Anthony knew, deep in his bones, this was just intermission. The Russo family compound in the Bronx was a fortress of faded glory. A 2-story brick house on a corner lot, Virgin Mary statue in the postage stamp yard, garage packed with Vincenzo's tools and Harlan's fishing gear. Sunday dinners here were sacred, platters of braciole and rigatoni steaming under the dining room's wagon wheel chandelier, wine flowing freer than confessions. But this emergency meeting felt like a tribunal, the air thick with espresso and unspoken accusations. Anthony pulled up in his Acura just past noon, David's hand warm in his on the gearshift. You sure about this? David asked, voice low. We can bail. Say I kidnapped you for a spontaneous road trip. Anthony squeezed his fingers, pulse steadying. No running. Not anymore. He leaned over, stealing a quick kiss, soft, affirming before stepping out into the November chill. The wind whipped leaves across the sidewalk, carrying the faint tang of garbage trucks from the avenue. David's presence at his side was armor. Jeans tucked into boots, leather jacket zipped against the bite, that unflappable calm radiating like a shield. Vincenzo flung open the door before they knocked, face thunderous under salt and pepper brows. Anthony, you disappear after that mess? And bring him. His gaze raked David, landing on their linked hands like it was a live wire. Maria hovered behind, rosary beads clicking, eyes red-rimmed from a night of prayers and tears. Dad, we need to talk, Anthony said, stepping inside. The living room smelled of lemon polish and regret. Couch sagging under Afghans, walls lined with framed wedding photos, Anthony's little league trophies gathering dust. Harlan slouched in the recliner, nursing a highball, while cousins and aunts crammed the space, murmuring like a jury. Vincenzo jabbed a finger at David. Talk? After he tanks the wedding? 50 grand. Tony, poof, because of a little joke. It wasn't a joke, David cut in, voice even, eyes locked on Vincenzo. It was hate. And yeah, I pulled the funds. Not out of spite, for survival. He glanced at Anthony, a flicker of that rooftop fire. We survived it. The room erupted. Gasps. Harlan's guffaw turning to a cough. Maria's Madonna Mia. Anthony held up his hands. Enough. Sit. All of you. Miracle of miracles. They did, creaks of springs and shuffles settling into an uneasy truce. Anthony drew a breath, the words he'd rehearsed in the car tumbling out. Last night broke something in me. Not the wedding, that was fake from the jump. Emily's amazing, but she's not. She's not who I love. He turned to David, open, unashamed. This man? He's been my rock since we were kids stealing popsicles from the truck. He loves me, flaws and all. And I love him. Gay, straight, whatever label, it's us. That's the family I choose. Silence crashed down, heavier than the meatballs on the sideboard. Vincenzo's face mottled red, fists clenching. Love? This ain't love. Boy. It's confusion. Sin. What about grandkids? The name? Russo men don't. Don't what? Anthony shot back, heat rising. Don't be happy? Don't live true? You raised me to fight for what's right. Dad. Construction sites. Teaching me to swing a hammer. Build solid, or it crumbles. Well, this. He gestured between him and David. This is solid. Hiding? That crumbles. Harlan snorted. Pretty words. But the world's watching. Nephew. You want to be the family fairy tale? David stiffened, but Anthony rounded on him first. Call him that again, and you're out. For good. Harlan blinked, cowed, as Maria rose, crossing to Anthony. Her hand trembled on his cheek, tears spilling. My boy. I knew. In my heart. Prayers for strength. But maybe for courage. She glanced at David, softening. You've been good to him. Always. Vincenzo exploded from his chair. Maria, you're encouraging this. But she whirled, fire in her eyes rare as a blue moon. Encouraging? Vincenzo Russo, you've buried your head since Tony was small, those phases you ignored. Enough. He's our son. We love him. Or we lose him. The patriarch deflated, sinking back, hands rubbing his face like a braiding rust. I don't understand. But losing you, his voice cracked, an old man's vulnerability peeking through. That I can't. Anthony knelt, clasping his dad's hands. Calloused, familiar. You won't. But it changes. No more pressure, no more jokes. We build from here. As hugs followed. Awkward, tear-streaked, the room thawed. Harlan even clapped David's shoulder, mumbling, sorry, kid. Heat of the moment. David nodded, gracious. Water under the bridge. They left with promises of therapy, family sessions, maybe a PFLAG group Maria Googled on the spot, and a Tupperware of leftovers thrust into David's arms. In the car, Anthony exhaled, boneless. That went better than expected. David chuckled, starting the engine. Your mom's a badass. Remind me never to cross her. The high carried them back to the village, where brunch waited. Lena's walk-up crammed with their crew, queer artists, techies, a drag queen named Ruby nursing a Bloody Mary. The conquering heroes, Ruby crowed, pulling them into hugs. Stories spilled. The wedding wreckage dissected like a bad rom-com. Toasts raised to fuck the haters. David leaned into Anthony, the weight of eyes on them electric, affirming. For the first time, they weren't hiding, no stolen glances, just hands intertwined on the table, easy as breathing. But peace was fleeting. That evening, as they tangled in David's sheets, slow exploration, rediscovery with whispers and gasps. A call shattered it. Emily, voice tight, Tony, your dad's on a warpath. Harlan blabbed to the extended family. Threats flying, disinheritance, church shunning. And there's photos. From the reception. Someone posted the glass-smashing clip online. It's viral. Anthony bolted up. Scrolling TikTok. Grainy video. Harlan's slur clear as day. David's exit a profile in poise. Comments exploded, bigot busted trending. Allies rallying. Trolls spewing bile. Shit, he breathed. Dad's furious. Says it's your fault, Dave. For provoking it. David's jaw set. Let him. We've got lawyers. PR firms. This isn't the 80s. But Anthony saw the flicker, old wounds reopening. The shaming wasn't just Harlan's. It was the world's echo. The fear that had kept him closeted. We'll fight, he vowed, pulling David close. Together, the storm hit midweek. Vincenzo stormed the bank, demanding Anthony's resignation. Can't have a ferry running spreadsheets, only to backpedal when HR invoked anti-discrimination policies. Harlan's buddies picketed David's old startup office, signs scrawled with slurs, but counter-protests swelled. Drag brunches turning into rallies, influencers amplifying David's story. The quiet cancel, they dubbed it, a hashtag born of his unflinching exit. Through it, their love deepened. Mornings of coffee and crosswords, nights debating Baldwin essays by candlelight. David opened up about his parents' crash, the loneliness that birthed his app empire. Anthony confessed the terror of his first crush, a teammate on the soccer pitch, and the prayers he'd whispered to a God who seemed deaf. They were building, brick by honest brick. Yet betrayal lurked. One rainy Thursday, Anthony's phone pinged. A text from cousin Gino. Attached photo. David, mid-kiss with a faceless guy at last pride. Innocent, pre-Anthony clarity. Knew he was a player. Watch your back, 'cause jealousy spiked. Irrational. That night, over takeout pad thai, Anthony shoved the phone at David. This? Before us? David's fork paused, eyes narrowing. Yeah. And you said. I said I waited. Didn't say I was a monk. Hurt flashed. Then steel. If that's a deal breaker. Doors there. Anthony recoiled. Shame flooding. No. God. No. I'm sorry. Just scared you'll wake up. Realize I'm damaged goods. David cupped his face, thumb tracing his lip. You're not. You're mine. And I'm yours, flaws, history, all. The kiss that followed was apology and anchor, but the seed of doubt took root. Trust, fragile as new shoots, tested by shadows of the past. Winter clamped down on New York like a vice, snow blanketing the village in hush white, muffling the city's roar to a whisper. David and Anthony's rhythms settled into something sacred. Mornings tangled in flannel sheets, the scent of David's French press mingling with Anthony's aftershave. Evenings at indie theaters in Brooklyn, hands laced during Sundance indies that mirrored their mess. David mentored at a queer youth center uptown, sharing code and coping strategies with kids who'd stared down their own Harlans. Anthony, emboldened, volunteered at the same spot, facilitating panels on coming out in immigrant families. His bank suit traded for hoodies and honesty. The family thaw progressed in fits. Maria's weekly calls laced with recipes and rosary updates. Vincenzo's gruff texts. Good game last night? Knicks suck. Evolving to invites for espresso at the old diner. Harlan even mailed an apology card, scrawled in block letters, "Won't happen again." Peace? David framed it by the fridge, a talisman of unlikely grace. Emily, ever the ally, started dating a barista named Jordan. Double dates at speakeasies, laughter healing old fissures. But the viral storm lingered, a low hum of scrutiny. David's inbox overflowed. Interview requests from NPR, cameos on queer podcasts dissecting the cancel that sparked change. He demurred, preferring quiet impact, donating wedding refund windfalls to anti-hate orgs. His app's next iteration featuring LGBTQ plus financial literacy tools. Anthony beamed at board meetings, touting the inclusion pivot, though whispers followed. The gay one? Yeah. Bold move. Betrayal struck on a sleet-lashed February night, the kind where cabs ghost you and the wind howls like banshees. Anthony had pitched a client dinner, big fish from Chicago, potential promotion bait. One night, he promised David over breakfast, kissing his temple. Back by 10. Love you. David nodded, burying unease in a coding sprint. But 10 became midnight, then 2 a.m., texts unanswered. Worry gnawed. He paced the loft, brewing chamomile that went cold. At 3:17, the door creaked. Anthony, disheveled, reeking of gin and guilt. Sorry, ran long. They wouldn't let up. David's arms crossed, chill settling. With who? The client? Or Harlan? Anthony blinked, swaying. What? No. I saw the group chat ping. Your phone lit up earlier. Boys' night extension, from Uncle Asshole himself. The words dropped heavy, sourced from a shared location app, innocent setup for safety, now a smoking gun. Harlan's bar tab, cross-referenced with Anthony's delay. Anthony deflated, slumping against the wall. It was nothing. He called, said he wanted to make amends. One drink turned to shots. Swore he'd changed. David's laugh was hollow. Amends? After picketing my office? And you went. Alone. After everything. I thought if I could bridge it. For Mom. For Dad. For you. David's voice cracked. The betrayal slicing deep. Not the drinks. But the secrecy. The echo of old patterns. Hiding again. Sneaking out like a teenager. Lying by omission. What are we doing? Anthony? If you can't stand with me in the storm, what's the point? Anthony reached, desperate. Dave, please. It was stupid. I'm here now. But David stepped back, walls rising. Are you? Or is this just intermission before the next safe choice? The silence stretched, raw, until Anthony whispered, maybe I am scared of losing the family I have left. Then lose me first. The words escaped before David could cage them, a reflex born of too many almost. Anthony's face crumpled, and he left, door clicking soft as a goodbye, crashing at Emily's couch, the betrayal's aftershock rumbling. Days blurred into a cold war. Radio silence. Anthony drowning in work. David in code. Lena staged an intervention at the youth center. Bitch. Fix it or I'll hex you. But pride held firm. Anthony hit rock bottom mid-March, staring at his reflection in the bank bathroom mirror. Hollow eyes. The promotion hollower without David to celebrate. He called Maria, spilling the fracture. Ma, I fucked up. Went to Harlan, thinking I could play hero. Dave thinks I'm weak. Her sigh carried oceans. Antonio, love isn't fixing others. It's showing up. For him, like he did for you at that wedding, walking tall. Go. Beg if you must. But mean it. Emboldened, Anthony drove to the loft under cherry blossoms just budding, a peace offering in hand. That old soccer ball from their youth, scuffed and signed forever. David answered shirtless, sweatpants low, mid-push-ups, eyes wary but softening at the sight. I'm not here to excuse, Anthony started, voice steady on the stoop. I was weak. Slipped back because facing the mess, your mess, my family's, is terrifying. But losing you, that's death. He held out the ball. Remember the oath? Conquer the world. Together. No more solos. David took it, fingers brushing, spark igniting. You hurt me. Bad. I know. Anthony stepped closer, rain from earlier dampening his collar. Let me earn it back. Therapy, solo, couples. Whatever. Just don't quit us. Inside, over tea gone lukewarm, they unpacked. Anthony's fear rooted in Vincenzo's rages, David's in abandonment scars. Vulnerability bridged, tentative, kisses hesitant, then hungry, reaffirming. No more ghosts, David murmured against his neck. Just us. Spring unfurled, testing resolve. Harlan's amends soured when a leaked email surfaced. His slurs to the picketers, plotting more. The family cleaved. Vincenzo disinvited him from Easter, Maria hosting a quiet Seder for the new family. Anthony stood firm, blocking Harlan's number. Blood's thicker, his dad grumbled once, but pride swelled when Vincenzo added. But love's the real tie. Climax brewed in May, Pride Month dawn. The march route pulsed with rainbows, drag floats blaring gaga, queer elders waving faded flags. David and Anthony walked hand in hand, Anthony's bank badge swapped for a Love Wins tee. Cheers swelled, but ahead, a counter-protest knot. Harlan's face twisted in the front line, megaphone snarling scripture. Anthony's step faltered, but David's grip tightened. Your call. He marched forward, parting the crowd. Uncle. Enough. Harlan's eyes widened, shock, then fury. Defending him? Over family? David is family. Anthony's voice carried, phones capturing. Your hate? That's what breaks us. Walk away, or join the line. Harlan's megaphone dropped, shoulders slumping. The crowd hushed. Then, a murmur, Maria, emerging from the sidelines, arm linked with Vincenzo. Fratello, she said soft, fierce. Come home. Properly. Tears streaked Harlan's cheeks, the fight draining. He nodded, once, and stepped back, not to the protesters, but toward them. The march surged on, cheers thundering, a video going viral anew, redemption at Pride. In its wake, catharsis. That night, rooftop party, friends, family, Emily toasting with Jordan. Anthony pulled David aside, under strings of lights. You saved me. Again, David smiled, slow and sure. We save each other. Summer simmered into New York's sultry haze, the kind where air conditioners hum like weary cicadas and stoops become salons for iced coffee confessions. David and Anthony's life wove tighter. A joint lease on a Brooklyn brownstone. Brownstone with a garden plot for Maria's basil. Rooftop deck for stargazing. David's app launched version 2.0. Outinvest, a queer-led fintech empowering marginalized creators. Anthony climbed to VP, his pitches laced with authenticity that sealed deals. Dates dotted the calendar, weekends in the Hamptons borrowed from Emily's network, jazz cruises on the Hudson where they dance slow, bodies syncing like code to compiler. Healing rippled outward. Family therapy sessions in a sunlit midtown office became ritual. Vincenzo grappling with his immigrant dad's rigid Catholicism. Harlan's jokes unpacked as armor against his own unspoken pains. A botched marriage, loneliness gnawing. Maria bloomed, joining a parish LGBTQ+ ministry. Her altar candles now for all God's children. Easter 2026 saw the full table. Harlan carving ham with a sheepish grin. David passing peas like he'd always belonged. Betrayal's scar faded but taught vigilance. Anthony's phone stayed transparent. Shared passwords. No sneak policies. David's trust rebuilt in layers. Vulnerable shares over vintage vinyl. Like the night he played Nina Simone's Feeling Good, voice breaking on the bridge. "That's us," he said. Rising, yet conflict simmered beneath, humanistic in its gray. Not all ties mended clean. Distant cousins ghosted. Church invites dried up. Whispers at Vincenzo's firm tested loyalties. Anthony felt the pull old self versus new. The American dream's wire between assimilation and authenticity. One July barbecue. Under the brownstone's string lights, it boiled over. A tipsy aunt cornered him. "Tony, this phase, when's it end? For the grandkids." He laughed it off then. But later, washing dishes with David, the dam cracked. What if she's right? What if we can't have it all? Kids. Legacy. Without the white picket lie. David dried a plate. Deliberate. Legacy isn't bloodlines. It's impact. Adopt. Foster. Build queer kids' futures. Like we do at the center. Or hell, freeze swimmers. But not at the cost of us. Anthony nodded. But doubt lingered. A shadow at the feast. They sought counsel, couples intensives in the Catskills. Hikes where truths tumbled like waterfalls. "I fear erasing the Russo in me," Anthony admitted one dawn. Mist curling. "But with you, I am more." David pulled him close. Earth damp under boots. "Then we're mosaic. Pieces fitting, not fading." Climax crested in autumn's amber glow. A callback to origins. Anthony's 30th loomed. David planned the surprise. A vow renewal, not wedding pomp, but intimate, on Westchester's wooded hill where their treehouse once stood. Demolished now for a McMansion, but the clearing remained, wild asters nodding in breeze. Guests sparse, core family, queer council, Emily officiating in a sundress, Jordan snapping candids. David waited at the makeshift altar, a willow arch twined with lights, heart hammering. Anthony crested the path, breath catching at the sight. Picnic blankets, lanterns, a playlist of their anthems humming low. "Dave." Vows poured raw. David's. Steady. "You taught me patience, the beauty in waiting. I vow to walk beside, never behind." Anthony's. Tear-choked. "You pulled me from shadows, showed love's quiet power. I vow courage, every day." Rings exchanged, simple titanium bands etched with forever, sealed under stars pricking awake. Cheers. Cake chocolate. David's fave. Dances barefoot in grass. Harlan even twirled Maria, whispering amends that stuck. But humanism's depth lay in the unsaid. Not fairy tale polish, but textured grace. Later, alone by a bonfire's embers, Anthony traced David's ring. "Remember the wedding? That shatter?" David nodded, flames gilding his face. "Yeah." Best decision I made. Anthony smiled. Soft. Bi kid or not. Freed us. The word hung bisexual. Anthony's truth unearthed in therapy. A spectrum, not betrayal. David kissed his temple. All of you. That's the vow. Years unspooled in montage. Fostering a teen named Luca. All sharp edges and hidden poetry. Their brownstone echoing with his beats. David's TED Talk on canceling shame. Anthony's panel on corporate closets. Vincenzo at Pride. Rainbow pin on his lapel. Harlan volunteering at the center, redemption earned. Not gifted. Tragedy brushed close once. David scare. A routine scan flagging something. Biopsy clear but fears grip vice tight. Anthony held vigil. Echoing David's wedding walk. Quiet strength. We're unbreakable, he murmured in the sterile wait. Ending bloomed human, imperfect, luminous. On a crisp November eve, 5 years post-shame, they stood on that rooftop, city sprawling like a loved one's veins. Anthony proposed redux, not on knee, but equal 2 rings, twinned. Marry me. Again. Forever. David's yes was a laugh. Kiss. The skyline blurring in tears. No funding cancelled. No slurs shattered. Just love. Earned in shards reforged. In America's mosaic, flawed. Fierce they fit. Shamed no more. But shining.